Counter-Strike is a first-person shooter video game developed by the company Valve. The initial release was developed and maintained as a Half-Life modification run by modders Min Lee and Jess Cliff in 1999. However, a short time later, Lee and Cliff were hired through Valve and the game property was acquired. Counter-Strike as a mod had more players than any of Valve's games at the time, and this was a green light for Valve to go ahead in acquiring the property of the game and hiring the two modders for their own company. Valve released Counter-Strike commercially in 2000, and it quickly rose to popularity with online gamers. Several other titles have been released after the game spawned a franchise which has been ported to popular consoles such as Xbox, Xbox 360, as well as OS X and Linux operating systems. In Counter-Strike, players take on the role of two sides, counter-terrorists and terrorist units. The objective of each round is to eliminate the other team or through completing the map's objectives, such as rescuing the hostages or planting the bomb and defending it from the other team, such as the counter-terrorists, or in the CT's case, defusing the bomb and eliminating the terrorist team. At the beginning of a round, players can customize their inventory and purchase new weapons as part of the loadout, such as grenades, rifles, body armor, and much more. Since August 2011, Counter-Strike has sold over 25 million copies as a franchise and continues to be one of the most popular online titles in the world. Counter-Strike has always been a competitive game, and even before the release of Counter-Strike Global Offensive and its official competitive mode, it has been a target for exploitation by cheaters since it was officially released. Cheating is a huge issue within Counter-Strike, especially with CSGO's new competitive scene, which assigns a player a rank based off their skill and performance. Players, or cheaters, can easily rise in rank to that of the pros and fill positions, making it much harder for legitimate players to move up in rank. Some cheats have flooded the online world of Counter-Strike for a very long time, especially since the original game releases. These include wall hacks, which allow players to see their opponents through the walls. This cheat can also make the walls transparent in order for the enemy to be seen more easily. Speed hacks make the player gain increased running speed, making them extremely hard to hit, giving them a very large unfair advantage over other legitimate players in the game. No recoil cheats remove any recoil from the player's weapon, which can be extremely unfair and give player an advantage when using high power and high recoil weapons such as the AK-47. Aimbots are perhaps the most infamous and popular of cheats in Counter-Strike. They operate by automatically targeting the enemy players, and many have the option to auto-shoot enemies. They work by calculating the enemy's player's 2D coordinates from 3D space of the map and snapping the user's mouse and crosshair to the enemy target, many times resulting in automatic headshots. To combat hacking and cheats, Valve have almost issued their own counter-terrorism unit, the anti-cheat system known as Valve Anti-Cheat, or VAC for short. Players who run cheats on VAC-enabled servers risk having their account permanently banned from all VAC servers. Not all cheats can be detected by Valve's anti-cheat system though. Like many game developers, catching cheaters is like a cat and mouse game for Valve. It can never be stopped, but without VAC, Valve could potentially lose money and credibility, whilst the cheaters are gaining money from privately sold hacks. This was especially a larger issue for Valve before putting most of their efforts into Steam, as they didn't generate as much of a profit margin from their old games in comparison to the software platform known as Steam. In the newer edition, Global Offensive experienced and more qualified players can become investigators of the Overwatch system, a new community-driven anti-cheat software integrated by Valve. The players are presented with a case which is based off player reports. The investigators can watch around 10 minutes or 8 rounds worth of footage before they come to a verdict on whether the player is cheating or if the reports are a false flag. If an offence has occurred, a ban will be issued on the offender's account. The duration is entirely dependent on the severity of the player's offence and their history of convictions. The reason can lead from anything such as griefing in a game, such as killing enemy teammates or purposely losing rounds, to hacking, which includes the hacks mentioned previously. This is classed as majorly disruptive and is a permanent ban, while griefing gives the player a 30-day exclusion from the competitive scene in the game. Counter-Strike has spawned many titles in its series, however not all games run on the same software. In fact, some of the games run on different engines. All titles leading up to Counter-Strike Source, such as Counter-Strike Source and Counter-Strike Condition Zero, run on Valve's Gold Source engine. This is Counter-Strike and Condition Zero, not Counter-Strike Source, although the engine is the same engine that was used to power the first few Half-Life games, as well as popular spin-offs such as Day of Defeat, which was released in 1998 along with the engine. Counter-Strike Condition Zero was a multiplayer-based title that was marketed as the follow-up game to Counter-Strike. It was released in 2004 and ran off the Gold Source engine. The game, although very similar to the original Counter-Strike, featured updated character models, textures, maps, and other small graphical tweaks. Unlike other titles, Condition Zero actually featured a single-player campaign, which allowed players to play as CTs alongside bots. As players completed missions, they would unlock more maps or missions, as well as more highly skilled or effective bot teammates. The missions included objectives such as kill 3 teammates or win a round in 60 seconds. Kill 3 teammates, of course, would probably lose you the game, more like kill 3 enemies. The game was developed by Gearbox Software, who actually also developed the spin-off titles of Half-Life, which we know as Blue Shift and Opposing Force today. Ritual Entertainment, a small company at the time, took the reins and completely remade the game into a single-player title with around 20 missions with enhanced AI. But due to an average review score of 60%, Valve dropped Ritual's share of development, and development was handed over once more to another company known as Turtle Rock Studios, who were later acquired by Valve. The final game was released, being very similar to Gearbox's efforts, and a secondary title was released with Ritual's single-player levels called Condition Zero Deleted Scenes, which had previously been scrapped from the game. However, the Gold Source engine was succeeded by the Source engine in 2004 following the release of Counter-Strike Source. Counter-Strike Source included many, if not all, of the same maps to play on, but boasted sleek new graphics in the Havoc physics engine implemented with the new Source engine. This new system allowed players to shoot barrels in front of doors or hide bombs under physics-driven crates, which offered a more dynamic sense of gameplay. The player and world scales are much more different to Counter-Strike 1.6, as well as having different grenade sizes and physics. The names of certain weapons were changed, as well as features like wall spamming put into retirement. Higher quality sounds are implemented, as well as certain graphical upgrades such as lighting, materials, and skyboxes being much more higher in quality. In 2011, though, Valve announced the successor of CSS, Global Offensive. Global Offensive brought new maps to the franchise without sacrificing the old maps from the previous titles in the series. Minor map changes were made to the original maps in order to bring balance to competitive multiplayer and allow for easier movement across the map without ruining the designs. The new maps and modes that CSGO boasts include modes such as Deathmatch Mode or DM Mode, Arms Race, Demolition, Casual, and also the competitive mode, which assigns the player a rank based off their performance and skill within the games. The buy menu is entirely overhauled in Global Offensive, with the game favouring a new sleek weapon wheel design, much like that of Grand Theft Auto 5, rather than a square buy menu like the original titles featured. New weapons added to the game, such as Molotovs and incendiary grenades, allow for increased weapon and team tactics, such as moving enemies into different sections or areas within the map when being blocked off with a Molotov. Global Offensive was also ported and released on the Xbox 360, allowing for a broader player pool. Many players have argued, though, about the movement in the console versions, favouring the mouse and keyboard over controller variants. The newer title, however, may be tougher for new players with the enhanced tactics and recoil on certain weapons. However, training on CSGO may improve players' skill across all titles in the franchise. Nowadays, Counter-Strike is huge in the competitive gaming scene, with live streamers on services such as Twitch.tv streaming their gameplay to a massive audience. Currently, CSGO ranks on an average of number 3 in the top 5 games on Twitch, closely competing with titles such as Hearthstone and Dota 2, which is another Valve title. Players stand a chance to gain a huge audience via the competitive streaming scene, as well as large sums of money for competing in the top tournaments, which can also actually give someone a living or money to live off, which is actually very impressive. There's one thing for sure, however: Counter-Strike will continue to go strong for the foreseeable future, as it keeps itself as one of the most popular first-person shooters of all time. We know this because Counter-Strike 1.6 is still going strong, with hundreds of players actually still playing the title, and clans keeping the community alive.